Tim, welcome to the show.
Dr. Vic, thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate you, brother.
Brother, I'm excited to have you on. Being a background in holistic chiropractor and have over 21 years of nutrition experience, I always love to just gel with someone and just dive deep into what you're talking about, what you're up to. And I'm excited to dive really into all this. And before we do, my listeners know how I work. I love to get right into your story. Let's just hear about how did you get into what you're doing today?
Well, a long, long time ago in a galaxy far away, my mom and dad got together. Just kidding. So no, I grew up over in Eastern Oregon, pretty much on the standard American diet. I was hunting and fishing. We had cattle, Hereford cattle, grass hay, alfalfa hay, big ass garden. I put myself through college cutting firewood, and I was a hustler. I was out there working. I just wanted to get out of mom and dad's under their thumb, and get my own apartment and that kind of stuff. So, and like I said, I played baseball at a high level, and I was an athlete, and everything was working fine until I left college. And then I got in a job. I was a little more sedentary, and and I started gaining weight. And that finally led to me being 42 pounds overweight by age 37. And now I'm like a financial advisor, got a couple kids, got the wife. I'm coaching baseball and football and that kind of stuff. And running around 3 offices with a lot of stress, trying to build a big practice in financial advising. And my health was suffering. And being a dude, I guess I was just in denial. I had my head in the sand. I'm like, I hope that goes away. So here I was, 42 pounds overweight, lots of mental fog. I wasn't sleeping well. I'd freaking sleep 8 hours, but I'd wake up tired. Then I started I had a huge patch of eczema on my left knee. It would crack and bleed and stick to my wool pants as an advisor. And then finally, I got 2 of them on my elbows too, that eczema deal. And that would crack and bleed. So I couldn't wear white shirts anymore because I would like literally stain them. Right. And then I'd be over at your house, like at a football party, and somebody's like, hey, there's blood on the wall. And I'm like, oh, I look at my elbow's like cracking and bleeding. So, what ended up happening was then I'd go to like the beach or something, and I didn't want to take my shirt off, not because I was overweight, because pretty much everybody else was, but it was because I looked like Salamander Man. I was always bleeding. And so as being this outgoing entrepreneurial type guy, my world now was shrinking and going inwards. And it was like very defeating. And it was just a weird time in my life. And then it got worse. Then I started bleeding rectally when I pooped. So that's why, for those of you who can't see me, my shirt says love when you poop, because for me, for 2.5 years, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not painful and 10 really painful, it was about a 6 or a 7 every time I pooped, and followed by blood. And that's when I was just like, man, I hope that goes away. And I went to the doctors, Prilosec, and they wanted me to do that kind of stuff. And I just stayed away from it. And even some of the pharmaceutical drugs they recommended, actually, one of the side effects was rectal bleeding. And I was like taking it for rectal bleeding. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. So I never did that deal, thank God. But I didn't have a solution. I tried high fat, low protein, low carb, high carb, 5 meals a day. I was doing all this stuff. I even tried juicing at one point, but I was juicing like too much like carrots and beets and too much sugary stuff and didn't know. And, a couple months later, the juice was under the cupboard and I wasn't using it again. So fast forward, now I'm on a vacation with my wife and her dad, who was a medical doctor from Lima, Peru. And we were up in a town called Tumbes, which is northern Peru, just south of Ecuador. Beautiful, unbelievable place. We're out fishing, deep sea fishing, and I'm sicker than a dog. And they thought it was seasickness. And I'm like, no, you guys don't understand. I mean, I hunt fish. I've been out in the ocean tons of times. I don't get this. And it was something else. And I was doubled over in pain. When we got back, he kind of diagnosed me, and he's like, we got to get you to the hospital. I'm like, so we drove down to the airport, and there was only 1 plane flight out of that very remote place a day. And I missed it by like 20, 30 minutes. So he's like, we can't wait. You could die. So we rented a van, and we drove 6 hours down this bumpy ass road down the coastline of Peru to a town called Piura, and where the nearest hospital was. And let me tell you what, Vic, that was the most horrible experience of my life, because I was literally in so much pain. I was bent over to like a 90-degree angle. And I was just like, and every bump on that road was like somebody punching me or stabbing me. This went on for 6 hours. Just to give you an idea. When I got there, I was completely exhausted. I mean, I could barely walk. I was so tired, and I had to walk 90-degree bent over deal. And it was like I was sweating so much from the pain that the paper money in my wallet was wet, just to give people an idea. So I was interviewed on another gal's podcast a couple months ago, and she's like, "Oh, well, you know what childbirth is like now." So I was like, "I don't know, but it was probably, I guess, you know." So, but then they, you know, and he didn't want him to operate on me in this hospital. And literally, dude, I was in the examination room, and there's like bugs flying around in the light, the lamp, and the tools and the stuff looked like it was from the 40s and 50s. So it was like kind of. So he had a state of the art hospital. He was kind of coordinating the operation room, getting all ready for me. So he did what you're not supposed to do, which is had him dope me up with a bunch of stuff, and then bought me a commercial plane flight, put me on a commercial flight, and flew me into Lima. It's like crazy. And I went into Lima on a taxi, and then they took me out of the taxi and threw me on a gurney and right into surgery. So this was, and I spent the rest of my vacation, basically recovering, and then my wife wheelchaired me back into the United States. So the point of this story is that my poor health didn't affect just me; it affected everybody else around me. Right? Because it ruined the vacation that we planned out. And her dad, I felt bad because he literally never taken a vacation in his entire career. He ends up back in the hospital. Second thing I learned was that I don't ever want to get surgery again. You know, it was scary when they put the mask on, you're out, and then you wake up later and then you got a hole in you and, you know, and you stitches and stuff like that. And thank God the doctors were there to save my life and do that. This is where Western medicine shines. They were, you know, Western medicine was born out of crisis care, out of war. You know, you get shot and shrapnel and your arm's blown off. They'll patch you up, save your life. Very important part of medicine. But for long-term, you know, chronic conditions, it's a complete fail. Obviously, all we got to do is look around. So people more now today are looking for alternatives outside of crisis care management. And I really didn't know much about any of this stuff. I still didn't really understand any of it. And then a good friend of mine, Charles, got diagnosed with chronic lymphocytic leukemia, which took me about 3 months to pronounce, CLL. And supposedly it was this incurable blood cancer, and it was going to take his life. And he broke the news to me and then said, "Hey, would you go with me to the Hippocrates Health Institute in West Palm Beach, Florida?" It's at the time like a 61-year-old detox and nutrition clinic. I don't know. Have you ever heard of them?
I have not.
Yeah. So it was originally started by a gal named Ann Wigmore. It was from Lithuania that healed herself of stage 4 colon cancer with lawn grass and herbs. Her grandmother was the village doctor or healer in Lithuania. So she learned a lot of stuff. So she heals herself, barely speaks English. And then, you know, now they've had over 600,000 people through the door. They do clinical research on everybody coming through the door. And I was one of those people. So we ended up flying January 1st, 2011 to the Hippocrates Health Institute. And Charles said, "Hey, by the way, when we get there, this is on the airplane, there's no meat, there's no dairy, there's no salt, there's no sugar, there's nothing cooked over 115 degrees. It was kind of this living food, lots of sprouts and juices type thing, healing diet." And I'm thinking, no meat? What are you talking about? Now I'm freaked out. You have to understand, like, I was the guy that was hunting and fishing. You know, if it flies, it dies. It's brown, it's down. Total redneck, shooting everything. You know, like literally. And but I'm like, dude, Tim, you got to put your stuff off to the side because your friend's got cancer and you're probably going to lose him. So I'd actually lost my grandma to glioblastoma, brain cancer. That was terrible. And then my aunt, we lost her to melanoma, skin cancer, and lung cancer. My mom did the hospice care for her. That was very hard on all of us. And then I actually lost another friend on my baseball team, Clay Mahoy, to stomach cancer. And he left 3 little boys behind from ages 6 to 17. So my experience was you get cancer and you die. And I figured that's what was in the cards for Charles. But he wanted to live, and he was, you know, he took the reins and went outside of the chronic care type stuff and tried to do it himself. And day one, my acid reflux was gone at that institute, and it had never returned since. And it's been 12 years. I continued on the program. I went through kind of like a little bit of a detox, and I had heavy metals coming. I could taste heavy metals coming out of my tongue, like a metallic taste on my tongue. I had night sweats. I was kind of irritable for about 3 or 4 days. Some people had it worse, man. Some people had rashes breaking out on their skin, sometimes all over their body as stuff was exiting. We'd see parasites literally exiting people's body, crawling out of their pores. I saw a parasite crawl out of a lady's eye at the lunch table. And people think this is like, oh, well, I was like, no, dude, I was there. Like, I saw this stuff. So the first class was called Internal Awareness. And this really buff doctor comes out. His name was Dr. Scott Josephson. And he starts basically educating us on, from the time you eat food until it exits the body, what happens. And it was a great class. But the takeaway is that the average person is carrying around about 6 to 12 pounds of impacted fecal material in the colon. And the colon, what I learned, is not a storage tank. It is a waste removal system. And if you have 6 to 12 pounds on average of this nasty funk and gunk and junk, you're basically creating a terrible or perfect, actually perfect terrain for harmful organisms. Viruses, bacteria, molds, yeast, fungus, parasites, and mutagens, cancers love it. So the whole takeaway was you got to clean it up. And they were trying to sell us on colonics or colon hydrotherapy. Have you ever heard of that?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So I'm like, I never heard of it. So basically, for those listening, if you don't know what it is, because I didn't, you sit on a tube rectally and water gently goes in and out of your colon for an hour and it basically cleans your colon up and get that garbage out of there. And I remember elbowing Charles. I said, hey, look, dude, I came here to help you with your cancer, but I ain't doing that deal. There's no way. But by the end of the guy's talk, he was actually smart and he actually showed virtual colonoscopies of 3 healthy people and then 4 people, 3 that were unhealthy, and then 1 that had been on this Hippocrates lifestyle for a few years. The first one was a 24-year-old female with Hashimoto's, and it's like a thyroid disorder. And then she also had thrush, which is a yeast infection. Inside of her colon was like literally white and yellow. It was all this yeast, and I was like, what? I mean, I never thought in a million years. I thought, okay, in your colon it should be brown, right? Because it's like poop's coming out. It was yellow and white and weird looking. So then they went to a 65-year-old male with colon cancer, and he had parasites. And inside of his colon, dude, it was like black as night tar with white worms crawling around. And then Dr. Josephson turns around and he said, hey, just so you guys know, this parasite thing, this is not a third world affair. Easily, over 50% of you are going to visually see the parasites exiting your body through your stool. And some of you will see them crawling out of your skin, which we did. We saw that. He said, not a third world affair. And he goes, I'm not just talking about these ones you can see, the hookworms, the pinworms, and the tapeworms. There are smaller microscopic parasites that live in your blood and your tissue and your heart. And he said, all of them are drinking your drinks, eating your food, they're urinating and defecating, and you having sex and laying thousands of eggs. Okay, dude, now you got my attention. And then I'm just like, all I'm thinking is I want to get this stuff out of me. Then they went to like a 45-year-old female with breast cancer and like colitis or Crohn's. Her gut was jacked up. And again, black, weird. There's some brown stuff in there. Then they went to the healthy person's colon. Yeah, there was brown waste matter coming in, but the lining of the colon was like pink and clean. And you could see the vessels and the blood vessels. And it was just like, my point was, it was a completely different terrain. This guy did a damn good job explaining to me why I needed to get that crap out of there. But when I saw it, it was totally seeing is believing. I'm like, I got to get this stuff out. Because I knew, he said, these people have been eating this, and doing this, and there's stress. And I'm like, that was me. So my colon's probably one of those 3. And I'm like, I'm going to get in that colonic deal. So I signed up, went in. Next day, they weighed me. I did the colon hydrotherapy session. They weighed me again in an hour. And I dropped 10 pounds of impacted funk and gunk and junk. Now, the record at the Institute in 2011 when I went was one lady had dropped 27 pounds of impacted funk and gunk and junk after 1 colon hydrotherapy session. So what he told me was, Tim, you got 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound bag. And if you ever want to be healthy, truly healthy, this is where it starts. You have got to clean the pathway of elimination because this is where everything's going to be exiting the body. And this is the intestinal tract is where the nutrients go through the intestinal lining into the bloodstream and hopefully can make it into the cell. So we did it. And after about 4 days, I woke up and I felt like I was freaking 18 again. My arms were tingling with energy. My brain was back. I'd lost 11 pounds. Most of it was, garbage in me, but I felt amazing. And I looked at Charles and I said, dude, do you feel as good as I do? He's like, yeah. I'm like, dude, we have literally discovered the fountain of youth. Like, this is what everybody's looking for. It's not any woo-woo bullshit. It's just like, all you have to do is like, get all this man-made garbage out of you, clean up your intestinal tract, and then flood your body with nature and plug you back into nature because you are nature. Like, our bodies are made of water. Where do you find that? Nature. You have the gut microbiome, which we talked about pre-show. Where do you find that? Also in the soil microbiome. It's the same. In your bones, when you die, if you were cremated or thrown out in the dirt, you're going to break back down into the minerals into the soil. So we are nature, and that disconnect is one of the reasons we have, I think, big problems today in our health. We've got to get back to nature.
I love the story, man. And it's so true. Have you ever heard of the Gerson method?
Yes, I have. Yeah, very much. Yeah.
It's similar in some ways, but it's so critical in what you're sharing and what the doc was sharing too. Cause I mean, like some of the advanced techniques that I do and nutrition finding and so forth, we can look up like parasites and viruses and so forth and whatnot. And in a very weird looking way, because we use muscle testing and energy testing to find what the body has. And it's always fascinating when I got into that work, the teacher was telling us like, you're going to find a lot of people with parasites. And I was like, Okay, what kind of parasites are we talking about? Because again, from the medical world, they think parasites only exist in the gut. So if you go get a blood test, they'll do a stool sample and they'll see, well, if you don't have, I'll do work on someone, they'll go get a parasite test, and they're like, the doc said I didn't have parasites, and I'd be like, that doesn't mean that they don't have to live in your gut. They can in your colon. They can be in other areas of your body. They'll reside and
Yeah,
find
talk
home.
talk to a cardiologist that's doing surgeries. They'll be doing bypasses and stuff like that, and open up the heart, and pockets of worms come out. Think about that.
Exactly. And so it's one of those things where, doing that kind of stuff is huge. Have you, since you did the colonic route, have you ever got into coffee enemas?
No, I didn't, because at the Hippocrates Health Institute, they had a different spin on that. So what they do is they do wheatgrass implants. So instead of coffee,
Gotcha.
they'll implant 4 to 6 ounces of wheatgrass. And the reasoning behind it was the body's very acidic. And I know there's some benefits to it, but they're trying to alkalize the body as much as possible. So when the wheatgrass goes in, Dr. Clements and Dr. Anna Maria Clements said that the wheatgrass does the same job as the coffee, but it goes in and alkalizes. It's a food and it's oxygen, because the byproduct of plants is oxygen. So the oxygen is going there and it's cleaning and killing and creating a very alkaline terrain, which is not conducive to the viruses, bacteria, mold, yeast, fungus, parasites, and cancer. So those things pack their bags and they leave. Kind of like, a polar bear or a penguin in Miami. If they show up there, they're like, I'm getting out of here. I'm going somewhere colder. So they swim north or south, right? So that's why we saw these parasites leaving people's body, because we were literally changing our internal terrain. And see, when I saw those virtual colonoscopies, man, that's when I got it. It made sense to me. I'm like, oh my God, this is an inside game. I got to go inside. I learned about intestinal villi, those little hair-like structures, and I'm like, and the guy's like, if you take care of these villi and give them a good environment, stuff like that, you're going to be healthy and you're going to have beautiful skin. I'm like, I'm going to take care of my villi, So I got really into learning how to do that, and I went inside. And that inside game has paid off. And I'm 49 years old, dude. And the eczema was gone, dude, within 60 days on my elbows. Within 8 months, it was gone. That huge patch on my knee was gone. I had another skin issue. My shoulder was gone. I'm 49. I lost the 42 pounds and literally in 60 days. My skin now glows, and I get comments on my skin at 49. And when I was 24, I didn't get any comments on my skin. Right. So it freaking works. And I just stuck with it. And I told Charles, I'm like, dude, I'm going to do this with you. I'm going to give up all meat except for bacon. We came home and we just started juicing and doing all this stuff. And I got so passionate about it that I finally left the financial services industry to become a health advisor rather than a financial advisor, and try to show people, it's like, look, if I can do this, you can do it. And there's so many freaking people out there that are just like, they don't know what to do. There's so much crap online. It's not really rooted in reality. I just try to simplify things for people and just do what's worked for us and our coaches and our clients.
Yeah, and I think that's really what matters at the end of the day is, how can we simplify something, so that people can just grasp it and get it and then move forward with it, because this is an epidemic. I mean, it's one of those things that are not being discussed much about. And our gut, like you said, I used to tell when I was practicing in chiropractic, I used to tell, besides the benefits what chiropractic does, I would also share, if you want to have anti-aging and look young for a very long time, just take care of your gut. It's the same thing. It's the same lining. It's going to,
Yeah.
as long as you take care of that and feed your body well, cleanse it out, make sure it runs well, and then make sure you're feeding it well. You in a few months, you'll start to notice a beautiful glow. You'll start to have, as you notice, the skin's more hydrated and all this stuff is just better. That's why you notice thrush with the lady who had the thrush on her tongue. That's how you saw exactly from a tongue being all white coated with the yeast. You're going to see that exactly in the colon. There's no difference from there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of women, especially women, they buy these creams and stuff for their face to try to look beautiful. And guys do it too. I mean, we actually have a product now, an edible skin. It's called Skin Food Complete. And it's coming out very soon, but we already have a skin program, and we've been working on the gut. I've been doing this work for 12 years. And if you go internally, if you take care of that inside skin, which is your digestive tract lining, it's just kind of the inverse of the outside. Your skin's going to be beautiful. So when I had eczema, I didn't have skin issues. I had gut issues. That's what I had. I had some gut issues.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit about then what gets us there to be all backed up and get us to be in that state where all of a sudden we have these issues, 12 pounds plus of just junk sitting in our colon and making our colons be cultivating diseases and pathogens and all those things.
Well, I've kind of boiled this. I'm just going to launch into it. I boiled it down to three main things. And I wrote a 5,000 word article on this. It'll be in the Hippocrates magazine this July. And the first one is stress. Number one is stress. And because we've done all this stuff where we've done the colon hydrotherapy, we get people juicing, we change their lifestyle, we bump up their living foods, all these things, and they do all that stuff, and they get better, but there's just this, they can't quite heal. And every single time that it happened, it would be like it was a woman and she had an autistic son, right? Or she, like this other woman I'm thinking of, her husband was just kind of a jerk, and they slept in different bedrooms. And they also had a special needs child and another child. So it's always stress, right? Stress. So here's the deal. We're all stressed at some level today. So the first thing that I teach people, which is kind of crazy for this redneck farmer hunting hick dude, I got into yin yoga and meditation. I'm a yin yoga instructor and breath work. And I teach people, you have to have some freaking tactics to mitigate stress today. And it can be fun. And you don't have to go meditation. Oh, that's woo-woo stuff. Okay, we'll call it clear your mind. Can you clear your mind? How about that? So get out in nature. There's organizations like over in China, people pay them like a lot of money, and they just take away their cell phones and their laptops, and they kick their butts and send them out into nature and let them walk around a little bit. And they start healing, right? So getting around sunshine, getting out in nature, going for walks, meditation, clear your mind, breath work, breath exercises. You have to have something, beautiful music. These are things that you need to be in a daily practice. It has to be a habit, a daily habit, because the stresses are coming every day. So you have to have this place where you can go and create a sanctuary for yourself where you can stay in the eye of the storm. And then all this stuff doesn't affect you so much, because then you start getting a different perspective on it. So instead of it being so-called bad, it's just contrast. And it's allowing you to know more of what you don't want and maybe more of what you do want. So it can serve you. It's like, that's one thing that I learned in life, is like everything in life is meaningless. So when I first heard this, I'm like, that doesn't make sense. But it's true. Everything in life is meaningless. It's only the meaning that you give it. So we get to decide whatever happens and how we respond to it. And when you start responding differently to things, you can lower your stress, and that's when your life starts changing. The second thing is pollution. We're toxic today. My company's called Chemical Free Body for a reason, because 9 years ago, I was reading an article. In fact, when you guys are done listening to this podcast, type this in. It's going to blow your mind. Type in these 3 words: umbilical cord chemical. Umbilical cord chemical. And you'll see the same studies that I saw went back to 2005, that every single child, young mother, they test the umbilical cord blood. They look for like 400 toxic chemicals that'll, kill you. And they found 250 of what they were looking for, 71% in the umbilical cord blood of these babies being born. Every single time they test the umbilical cord blood, they're finding the same thing. Now, this is where it gets spooky. There are over 100,000 toxic chemicals out there. They make 2,000 new chemicals every year, and there's only 1/4% are tested. The rest are released out into the marketplace. So if you think, oh, well, Erin Brockovich, give her a hand, applause for stopping the BPA. But guess what? They got 37 other ones. They got BPB, BPC, BPD, BPE, and they roll right into that stuff. And those are the same or worse. They're just other form of what's called a xenotoxin. So pollution's rampant. The healthiest of us, these young mothers and babies, are already polluted. I started getting pissed when I started hearing years ago that young babies were being born overweight, and then babies were born obese. And then all of a sudden, children are born with type 2 diabetes, and now children are being born with cancer. When they did that, one study in 2005 showed that 180 of those 250 chemicals cause cancer in humans, and 212 cause developmental and brain disorders. As adults, this is a national crisis. We have this invisible, it's like this invisible cloud of toxins. You've got automobile exhaust, pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, larvicides, jet fuel. You've got rubber compounds coming off of tires. It's endless. They just spray all this crap all over this place. And you mentioned glyphosate earlier. Billions of pounds of glyphosate are dumped. It's an herbicide, main ingredient Roundup, all over. And it's in now 74% of our rainwater. You can't escape it. And it's crazy because that glyphosate goes into the ground, binds to heavy metals, brings heavy metals into your body, and gives you heavy metal toxicity is one problem it does, right? So all these toxins and chemicals are coming in, and that's when I realized, oh my God, We're all polluted. And the older we are, the more time we've had to bioaccumulate these toxins in our blood and our fat and our muscle tissue and our brain. So we have to have a plan. You have to have the awareness that they're there, even though you can't see them. They're there. And you have to learn how to detox. And we believe in a daily detox because we live in a polluted world today. It's like living in a fishbowl with gasoline in it, right? So you have to have something going on to get the gasoline out of your tissues. And that's where we're at today. So getting the chemicals out and keeping them out. And how do you do that? Well, number one, you stop buying foods that are sprayed. You start growing your own foods. You ask your produce manager to bring in sprouts. You go to local farmers markets. You shop local. Talk to your farmers. Find out what their planting practices are. Do they spray or not? Is there a crop next to them where the neighbors are spraying? You have to do your freaking homework because you're probably going to eat today. You might eat tomorrow. You're going to eat something a week from now, 10 years from now. Wouldn't it make sense to kind of plan that out a little bit? Like where you're getting the fuel for the vehicle that's going to take you through your entire life, the most precious thing that you have. If you're going to take care of your kids, you got to take care of yourself. And so many parents today, especially women, are putting themselves last. And then a wheel falls off and then they're going to a broken system, right? And then they try to scrape back their health and spend a bunch of money and they're on a bunch of pills. It's just kind of silly. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. So chemical toxicity is number 2. I hope I made a big point about that. And then the last thing is nutrition. It's pretty simple. 85% of the nutrients are farmed out of the frickin' soil today. So everybody listening, you're pretty much on 15% fuel. You're like driving a car around on 15% octane. You have no idea how much energy you could possibly have. Like none. Like I'm 49 years old. I'm like trail running 4 to 7 miles. I feel like a jackrabbit running around the woods. And when I was 37, I couldn't even huff a puff around the track once, up around a field, a track around the field and stuff like. So we have to in place that. And then it gets worse. Then I found out that, and I was a culprit because I didn't know. And the farmers, we've been duped because a lot of us till soil. We till the soil up so we can plant crops. And that's just, everybody kind of thinks that's a normal thing. Well, guess what? There's those soil microbiome we talked about earlier, those bacteria that are in the soil, the same ones that are in your gut because we are nature. And when you till the soil, you screw them up. You kill them, a lot of them. They're like little taxi cabs that take the nutrients in the soil and take them through the root system of the plant to get them into the plant so that when you eat the plant or you eat the animal that ate the plant, you'll have some nutrients. So not only are we 85% deficient in nutrients, but we've killed the little taxi cabs, the bacteria that transport the nutrients into the plants. So we're getting very little nutrition. And then you go to our problems. We are dehydrated. And when your cells are dehydrated, 95% of the people typically listening to shows, maybe not yours because they're more, awakened, but about 95% of people are dehydrated on a cellular level. Well, you're not going to be able to burn calories effectively, and you're not going to be able to take nutrients into the cell really good. Number 2, most people have poor fat membranes around the cell, or they call them lipid membranes. So if you don't have good fats, because all of your fats are cooked and processed, and you're not getting stuff like avocados and sprouted nuts and sprouted seeds, then you're going to have a poor membrane and then you're going to have a hard time getting nutrients in. And the last one is cellular inflammation. A lot of us have a lot of inflammation on a cellular level that, blocks nutrients from getting in and waste matter from getting out. So with the combination of dehydration, a poor lipid membrane, and cellular inflammation, and your gut's all gummed up with funk and gunk and junk, and the soil's jacked and the microbes are killed. So you see the problem. It's like this whole chain trying to get the damn nutrient into the cells all compromised. So we break that down and we help people go back, get it all cleaned up, hydrate, lipid, get some good fats in the body, reduce the inflammation, and start pumping in nature and greens and green juices and stuff like that. And voila, it's like magic. People just kind of come back to life because all we're doing is we're getting rid of the man-made crap and plugging you back into nature.
I love that. And it's so true and everything on that. It's the perfect storm that's leading to where we are today. And it's the thing that when you can just get back to being connected with nature in the ways that we're talking about here. And I love the whole thing when you brought up tilling. It's something that I was years ago. That's the same thing. Over 10 years ago, it was like, oh yeah, I just till, it loosens the soil, this and that. And then I found out all the fungus channels and all the bacteria you're destroying and all that. You're erupting the whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
And it's like, then it has to rebuild itself back and back again. It's like, you're depleting the whole thing until you learn, then the revolution of regenerative farming and permaculture kind of practices coming out. And it's like, oh, so that's what you do. Cool. All right. But it's one of the things to, how wonderfully it is. And just in my experiences, as a chiropractor and doing all the things that I've done is that how amazing, no matter where you are in your state of health, how the body is designed to heal. And when you give it what it needs, it will thrive. It will come back. It is amazing how it wakes up. And it's like you're awakening something. It's just getting rid of all this junk. And all of a sudden it's like, now you're going to give it food. It can absorb it. It can utilize it. And then it's like, wow, look at this machine start to work. Like you were saying, 10 years ago, I couldn't even do the trail running I'm doing. Look at me now. I could do this and so much more. Right.
That's it's fun too, dude. I took my 19-year-old trail running and he's been working out and he looks like Adonis. But he's not trail running. And I've been doing it twice a week. I just never miss. And I said, hey, Kyle, I was like, if you get, if you need tired or you need to stop, just let me know. We don't need to push it. I'm all about like baby steps. And he's just like, get out of here, old man. Just shut up, So I was like, all right. So we took off running. About 3.5 miles into it, we we're going up these switchbacks. He's like, okay, hold on. And he's doubled over and he's huffing and puffing. He's like, I can't believe it. I'm like, what? He goes, you're old. And he's like, you're kicking my butt. And I was like, well, dude, I told you I do it twice a day. He's like, no, but you're so old. I don't get it. And I said, dude, it's because I understand on a cellular level how my body works now. I got the owner's manual, man. So, and my cells are vibrating at a high level and, I don't have inflammation and like, dude, I can like trail run every day. Like I don't have inflammation in my body because I've learned where it comes from. And I've created an environment that's conducive to an anti-inflammatory body. That's it. So that's why I can do what I can do. And I can share it with other people and show them how to do it now. Right. So it's kind of fun because when you can outrun your 19-year-old and your 22-year-old, it's a good feeling. So dad's still on. He is faster than me now, but at least I can take him on a good long trail run and beat him.
There we go. That's all that matters. Well, Tim, I can dive in so much more with you on so many things, and I may have to have you back into somewhere in the near future to do that. But how can people follow you, find what you do, the products you sell, all that good stuff?
Awesome. Well, we actually have a free gift for them over at our website. The best way to go is just go to chemicalfreebody.com. That's chemicalfreebody.com. And when you're hunting around in there, this little pop-up says, hey, do you want a free gift? I think it's like a picture of me or something. And what we'll do is we'll send you our Core 4 Secrets Manual. It's our 4 basic things that we feel are the foundation. And 3 of them are free. They don't cost anything. These are things you can do that should be habits. They'll help you to restore the body. There's also some recipes in there. And it's actually one of my favorite gastrointestinal drinks that we show you how to make for pennies that I learned from the colon hydrotherapist, the lead colon hydrotherapist gal at Hippocrates Health Institute. That recipe's in there as well. But if you guys, we have coaching. I do group coaching. I've got a podcast called The Health Hero Show. You can look at that if you want to check it out. I go deep dives on stuff, and I've had some really cool guests. And if people are interested in products, just go to the shop tab, and I'd probably scroll down and show you how to get a discount. Go to savings bundles and do a little jumpstart bundle if you want to stick your toes in the water, or if you want to go all in. I do what's called the Total Energy and Detox bundle, and I also take all of our adaptogenic tinctures. And then at checkout, if you guys put in Dr. Vic, you get a double discount. So you get an additional 5% off. So if you put Dr. Vic in, double discount, and we have a double your money back guarantee on all of our products. Because I know they're going to work for 98% of you up the middle. If they don't, call us, we'll refund your money. But more importantly, get on the phone, send us a support email and get on the phone with myself or one of our other coaches. And because we understand that our products are just part of the toolkit. There's a very big toolkit out there available to everybody listening out there. And I'm sure, Dr. Vic, you've given these guys a lot of tools and stuff. And, the products are just one part. So if it doesn't work, we'll find another product, even if it's another company. We don't care. But our end goal is to help you wake up and feel good and be a shining example in your community and your family, and start handing out permission slips to other people that they can be healthy too after they see your transformation.